Very good. My name's Jared Fields. I want to know what is really going to change in this treaty. Austerity was elected to promise tax things for the young. Big up down to €100. No one can live in this day and age. What he's going to do next year? Put us down again to €50. And another question I have is, fees are going through the roof at the minute. We can't go to college anymore. You didn't fix this. Young people are leaving Ireland because they have no choice. And if they go to college, they can't afford it. If they don't, they get landed with a measly €100 a week. Well, look, yes, fix this. In my opinion, bankers are the only people that are going to get advantage out of this. Thank you.
Well, look, the first thing I want to say is that a lot of the decisions that were taken in the last budget have resulted in people suffering, in people's incomes being reduced. What we did manage to do in the last budget was not to reduce the basic rates of social welfare, and we didn't increase people's income tax. But we did have to raise money in other areas in order to try and address the balance. I mean, you cannot ignore the reality that Ireland is in at the moment. You can't keep continuing to assume that people will keep giving you money when you have a gap of €18 billion between what you earn and what you raise. Or sorry, what you spend and what you raise. No household can live like that. No business can live like that. This government didn't create this mess, but we have to clean it up. And the question we have to ask ourselves is it going to be easier to do that if we vote yes or if we vote no next week? You know, anger will not get Ireland out of these problems. And I'm not saying that, that things are easy at the moment. They're not, for a lot of people. And a lot of people are very angry, including me. And I want to see bankers behind bars.
Question one, is the yes vote going to change the situation?
The yes vote.
Please answer the question.
A yes vote. Sorry, I heard your question. I heard your question.
Yes or no? It's very simple. Yes or no?
A yes vote will ensure that we take the next necessary steps towards putting this economy back together, which will increase tax revenue, which will allow us in time to spend more money than we are currently spending, because when you raise extra tax revenue, that's what you can do. So the answer is yes. It will improve the quality of life for people in this room and people elsewhere as we put this country back together. But that will not happen overnight. And the issue here is that next week we have a choice to make just on the issues of budgeting and funding. And they're not going to solve all of our problems. We have a lot of other problems, some of which you've raised. And we will solve those too. But unless a country starts to earn enough money to run itself, without having to make cuts each year, year after year, to try and narrow that gap, well then we're at nothing. So what I'm saying is, if we vote no next week, the budget becomes a much more difficult thing to put together than if we vote yes. And by voting yes, in my view, it will encourage more Intel, more PayPal, more Apple, to invest more and expand more in Ireland, more Irish companies to do it. Today I was involved in announcing a new partnership between McDonald's and Dawn Meats, an Irish meat processing company. They signed a contract today for €300 million. They're employing 65 new people in Waterford, where jobs are needed. That is the kind of way we will recover in Ireland. Not screaming and shouting and waving placards. And that's what I'm about. Solutions. Okay? I know people are angry. It's my job to ensure that in a year's time Ireland is a much better place than it is now. Just like in my view Ireland is a much better place now than it was 12 months ago. That's not to say we've solved our problems, we haven't. But by voting no, we make it more difficult to do it. So the answer to your question is yes. In my view, it will be easier to solve the kind of frustrations and problems that you've outlined today if we vote yes. It will certainly be more difficult to do it if we vote no. Next question, please.
Hi, Minister. Thanks for taking the question. There's been a lot of talk about investment that has occurred. Now, the referendum is on next week. All this investment occurred without the referendum. PayPal invested without the referendum. Other companies did so too. Now, there seems to be a number of issues of smoke and mirrors here tonight. A number of high-profile reports from ICTU and other agencies or organisations highlighted that to create real competitiveness in this country, it's about reducing insurance costs, reducing legal costs, reducing energy costs. It's not about cutting public services, and I genuinely cannot see the link. Also, in relation to this idea that this bailout in 2008 is the cause of our problems, who voted for the bailout in Dáil, Ireland? Most of the parties voted for it. That wouldn't have passed otherwise. But going beyond that, the policies that led to that bailout were supported by Fine Gael. They were supported by Fine Gael. And the same people are now asking us, Minister Copeland, you seem to have avoided the figure 0.5% when you were speaking about the structural deficit. You used an old number of 3%. Here are some of the figures for you. Between now and 2015, going with Lisbon and all those, and adding on this new treaty, we will be expected to make cuts and taxation rises of 24.1 billion euros. And that's not including the 11 billion that we are being asked to contribute to the ESM. Now, just for people who don't know it, the ESM, bear with me, I'm not finished. The ESM is not allowed to be investigated by judges, by the police, or by any state, and it's run by private business interests. That's what this man is asking us to sign into today. Now, every single country, whether we look at the South Asian bubble in the 1990s, whether we look at South America in the 1980s, or we look at our modern or contemporary European equivalents such as Greece and Spain, etc., whenever this austerity has been brought in, and they've never been brought into the level that you're advocating, but whenever it's been brought in, economies have shrunk. Now, the reality is that if you were going to cut public services to the level that's been asked for, the reality is that private jobs go. Also, one further point, have you no faith in the innovation of the Irish people that you spoke about earlier? If you think that all we can only grow through foreign investment inwards, and it is an important thing, but what about ourselves? Our government will not be allowed to subsidise people who are trying to enter into business, because this is the final nail in the coffin of an agenda that's been going on for 30 years. Now, I am asking you, in the context of all of the evidence which shows shrinking economies with austerity, I'm asking you to show me one report where this has worked. Just one. We look at Argentina, we look at Iceland, all the countries that rejected austerity, and there were options. And the IMF came out only a few weeks ago and said that they will continue to fund us. And at the moment, EU officials are negotiating to fund Greece. Now, we also have one of the biggest costs of natural resources that people like you gave away at the lowest taxation rate. So, can you please answer me this? Why, oh why, oh why are you advocating something that is proven to be a fact?
Identify yourself. Who are you?
My name is Phil Markey. I just submitted a doctorate thesis in organisational culture and social policy. I'm well educated and well on to take you all along.
Everyone should identify themselves.
Can I deal with something first? Yeah. Question.
Don't waste too much time on that.
We're not
Why? What's your point? What's your point? No, we're here and we listen to what you had to say, so you know what I mean?
Irish enemies.
I don't think tonight should be about taking anybody out. Tonight is about trying to inform people as to what the actual truth is. Right? So if you let me deal with some of the points that you raised, because I don't think they represent truth. I'm not saying that you're lying, but I'm just saying that in my view, having looked at the treaty and having looked at what the Independent Commission says about the treaty, I want to deal with some of the issues that you raised. Okay? First of all, the IMF has not confirmed that they will continue to fund Ireland. Okay? The IMF, in fact, I have the IMF statement here, if you'd like me to read it, in relation to, in response to a Sunday Independent article which was suggesting that Ireland could go back to the IMF funding if they couldn't access PSL. Please let me finish now, because I listen to you. Okay, and it says that the article published in today's Irish Sunday Times misrepresents remarks from a spokesperson from the IMF. And then they go on to say in the quote that the IMF's current contributions to countries in the European Union are in partnership with European Union bailout mechanisms. The only mechanism that's going to be available for rescue funds or for bailouts in the future will be the ESM. If we cannot access the ESM because we decide to opt out of that, well then we cannot get that funding, and we are very unlikely to be able to get IMF funding either. Even if we were able to get funding from some other source, the chances of us getting that funding at cost and under the kind of conditions that have been put together for the ESM, which is all about trying to help a country recover, the idea that we would get funds on those kind of terms, is just totally unrealistic. And every neutral commentator that has commented on this issue has said that. So please don't. Please accept what I'm saying. As a government minister who will actually have to participate in discussions around potentially having to access funds like this, it is not realistic to expect that if Ireland deliberately chooses to opt out of the ESM, that all of a sudden the IMF is going to borrow us money, or lend money to Ireland at the kind of conditions that Irish people would find acceptable. They're already over-lent to Ireland in terms of what they would normally lend to a country of our size. Second thing, in relation to, I never suggested that the only way the Irish economy will recover is through foreign direct investment. I run the most exciting part of the Irish economy at the moment in terms of trying to give political leadership to it as regards the agri-food economy. That is an indigenous industry that is more important than any other industry in Ireland. It has grown in terms of its export value by 25% in 2 years. And the kind of jobs announcements that we saw today was about Irish companies, Irish entrepreneurs, Irish expertise, growing and developing and selling their food across the world. The beef industry sells beef to 140 different countries, and it'll be 150 by this time next year, including big new countries that we're trying to get access into at the moment. So I have absolute belief in the Irish people and in entrepreneurs in Ireland to grow and expand their businesses, and I think my sector is proof of that, and my commitment to my sector is proof of that. Secondly, thirdly, you're quoting a figure of 24 billion euros between now and I'm not quite sure what 2015. That's also inaccurate. We are being asked to reduce our deficit from currently at the end of this year it'll be 8.
Here they are, Alliance Global Investors France, AXA Investment Managers in Paris, Barclays Wealth Managers in France, PNP Paribas Asset Management, Carnegie Asset Management, Credit Suisse Asset Management, Deutsche Asset Management. All this asset management stuff is running the monies of high net worth individuals. Goldman Sachs Asset Management, ING Investment Managers, Rothschild and Company, Geston, and anyway, Rothschilds, you get the message. Anyway, that's it. Enda didn't know this, and I hope Enda is watching, so you may be able to, if you ring up David Norris in the morning, he's able to get things that apparently the Department of Finance and the Teachers Department wasn't able to get. And we get a photostat of this for you, Simon, and you can take it to. Is there a cabinet meeting tomorrow? You can pass it around anyway.
I mean, look, I don't think we should be making a joke about this, you know.
It's a bloody joke that you're pretending you don't know about it. That's a joke.
No, it's
or that if you don't know about it, you didn't find out.
The point I've been making.
Here we are giving $1.2 billion to people who probably bought these as Stephen said, bought these bonds at a huge discount. We're vastly enriching these people, and we're using that money to enrich these people, and at the same time devastating the lives of poor people in this country.
Calling it paying our way.
And that is sickening that we've had to do that.
You couldn't even be bothered knowing who they are. Sorry, finish your point. You get a last word.